Welcome to 2 Cents Wanted, the Bleach channel of original and random videos that don't seem to coincide with anything going on. Alright. Enough jokes aside, let's get into today's video. 2 months ago, I did a video detailing what I thought were the most difficult to use Zanpakuto in Bleach. It included the Shikai and Bankai abilities of the Zanpakuto. It wasn't a list of useless Zanpakuto, but those that are difficult to use if an average person could pick up and use it. Useless abilities will probably be its own series. So I decided I would continue this series with difficult to use abilities with Schrifts and potentially other power sets in the series. So with that, remember to like, subscribe, watch out for spoilers, and comment your thoughts down below. While you're doing that, I'll get started. Honorable mention, Almighty, the imperfect version. I know most people would see Almighty as an honorable mention and think this list is all messed up, but I'm specifically referring to the incomplete version used by Jugrim. The weaker or incomplete version of the Almighty used by Jugrim while the mighty God King is slumbering does not have the same capabilities as Yuhaba's version, nor the same insight. The Almighty allows Jugrim to perceive the future in real time, meaning his eyesight is perceiving the future and present simultaneously. And that's about where all the benefits stop. Jugrim can see at least 24 hours into the future, but the problem is accuracy. Although Jugrim can see the events, these events are not concrete. Uryu points out that Jugrim has experienced an event that he did not foresee, which Jugrim all but directly confirms. Even worse, some visions may be metaphoric. In Yuhaba's final moments, he realizes that the vision Jugrim shared with him upon him waking up wasn't a dream, but it was Jugrim showing him a vision of his own demise. Yuha did not see it as a viable future with his eyes because of its inaccuracies, so he ignored it, and this is what led to his death. The Almighty seems to be a hindrance at times if not perfected. On to the real list. Number 5, the Explode. So, the Explode Shrift. It may seem like your simple point-and-click, easy button type of ability. However, explosions, as anyone who has had any experience with fireworks, or is on the FBI's watch list, knows just how dangerous and uncontrollable they can be. When Bambi is throwing around her reishi that turns things into bombs, it creates a dangerous chance of backfire. We've seen it multiple times on how a reckless usage of her shrift can backfire. Or if someone can send whatever has become a bomb back at Bambi before it detonates on them. The ability clearly has a major weakness. The difficulty of this shrift is twofold. One, being judicious about when and where to use it so that you aren't using it on yourself. And 2, control. Bambietta, as I showed in her power profile video, has fine control of her reishi when she isn't being impeded. She can detonate the air and ground around her without blowing herself up. She can cut shapes into walls that blow up with consistency. She can even destroy giant arms that have her in her grasp without hurting herself. That takes control, and clearly it's not as simple as pouring reishi into things. Now, what keeps us from going higher on the list is that some of these problems are mitigated by the Vollständig. The Vollständig creates more mobility with wings and keeps a set of bombs that can be fired semi-automatically or automatically on the wings at all times, allowing the user to use them at a safe distance from the opponent or any target of the reishi, unless fly into the explosion like Giselle makes Bambi do against Mayuri. Number 4, Lloyd yourself. The Lloyd twins are in such a funky situation. As I've said in a previous video, if you were to combine their Schrifts together into one body, they'd probably royally stomp a lot of people. But one of the twin Schrift, I believe, is clearly more troublesome for the user than the other, and that's Lloyd's. If you're not familiar, Lloyd's and Royd's version differ in one key aspect. They both copy the physical form of the person they're copying, but while Royd copies that person's memories and mind along with their mannerisms, Lloyd's copies their power level and their special abilities. On the surface, Lloyd seems better, but here's the problem. You don't know how to use the other person's abilities. Lloyd doesn't copy the mind, so he doesn't get the intimate knowledge and nuance on how to maximize the power. Sure, you could argue that he would have a basic understanding, but that still doesn't mean you know exactly what to do with the ability. It'd be like you waking up the next morning realizing you can fly, but without a guidebook, you're not likely to just start zipping around like Superman. Or in a fight scenario, you can watch them during your fight to get a gist of what their ability is and then copy it, but if you can survive that long, you might as well just fight. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a useful and strong Schrift. I just don't believe it's as easy to use as it seems. Then the big weakness, whatever power level you copy is what you copy. So if an opponent is hiding a transformation, or like in Kenpachi's case, holding back their power, you just copied the weaker form, not their full power. The Shrift is not easy to use properly. Number 3, the Deathdealing. This is without a doubt one of the coolest abilities in Bleach. Full stop. The Deathdealing has 2 major abilities that make it one of the strongest abilities ever. First, anything that Askin takes into his body or consumes gives him the ability to adjust the lethal dosage of onto another person. He can either adjust the lethal dosage to benefit someone or kill someone. We only ever seen the latter though. The second is also whatever he takes into his body, he can change the lethal dosage of that is on his own body, effectively giving him immunity and regenerative capabilities. This can even apply to the spiritual energy of his opponents. So what's the problem? Well, quite a bit. This Shrift seems to take a bit of intelligence to wield properly. Askin is noted to be someone who does kill, but Askin himself does know that even when he is trying to kill someone, the actual lethal dosage needs to be constantly adjusted by him. There is also the matter of what becomes lethal to the enemy. Air is common to intake, but its range is limited. Blood or water is good too, but again, there's a condition of consumption that must be satisfied. Shrift requires a pretty good knowledge base of chemicals and biology to effectively use, so intelligence makes this one hard to use. Number 2, the Underbelly. Oh, the Underbelly. What can I say about you? A hypothetical, nearly unconditional Underbelly is probably a top Shrift in the series. Unfortunately, that's not reality. The Underbelly has a major condition that needs to be satisfied for its ability to work. As the name implies, the underbelly of a creature tends to be its weak point, especially when exposed. Once that weakness is exposed, it's vulnerable. Once Nana observes an opponent long enough, he can expose their Ryatsu to manipulate them. He can paralyze, knock out, and potentially even kill opponents given enough time. But that's the problem, the time. The implication by Nanana is that it takes at least 5 minutes in order to gauge someone properly to use the Shrift. That's either 5 minutes of you fighting or 5 minutes of you running away where your opponent's just throwing whatever they want at you. Then, even when you do meet the condition, you actually have to land the hit with the Underbelly symbol in order to manipulate the opponent's Ryatsu. You can't just start manipulating the Ryatsu weak points on a whim. There are just so many conditions that you have to meet in order to use the ability, but when you do, it is pretty broken. The situational nature and conditions makes this the second hardest Shrift to use. And finally, number 1, and I think it's the runaway one, the Visionary. I don't care what anyone says, this Shrift is a nightmare to have. Between intrusive thoughts, unconscious thoughts, and negative thoughts, this ability leads to a cacophony of drawbacks. Most people I've seen talk about Gremmy or the ability to imagine anything into reality, and they frankly have extremely naive takes. The mental discipline of the average person sucks. This Shrift requires mental discipline to work properly. Even worse, the majority of people have never experienced combat or even life or death combat, and trying to imagine something in the heat of that isn't easy. Not focusing, we've seen with Gremmy once his focus was taken off of Yachiru, when Krenny pressed him, turned his power off. Then you have concepts that are just difficult to imagine. Most people think they can think of something like infinity or nothingness, but it's actually pretty impossible to even understand those concepts. Then take into account another thing, one wrong thought can send you to the Shadow Realm or to the morgue. Hell, a really smart opponent who's really good at talking or is manipulative can get you to blow yourself up. Even if you gained mental discipline, which you can do, it still leaves the other major issues of actual imagination and focus, which in my opinion is still a bigger hindrance to your ability than any of the other ones on the list. Well, that's the video, folks. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and tell me your list down below. And for future, so the plan for next 2 videos are as follows. I will drop a video detailing the powers and abilities of Satoru Gojo from the Jujutsu Kaisen series, along with the rules of the versus match against the Sternritter. And then I'll drop the Gojo versus Sternritter video the week after. With that, y'all have a great day. Love y'all. Bye.